All right, so have you heard about this mystery in the Ural Mountains?
Oh, yeah.
It's been unsolved for like over 60 years.
Yeah, the Dyatlov Pass incident.
That's the one.
It's a really, really interesting
Well,
one.
we're going to dive into that today.
Yeah, and we're going to go deeper than what you typically see.
Yeah.
We're going to look at all those little details that people kind of gloss over.
Yeah, so to set the scene, it's February 1959.
Okay.
We're in the Soviet Union, and there's a group of 9 hikers. And they set out on a sea trip.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, 7 guys, 2 women.
Yeah.
And
They never made it back.
yeah, that's the crazy part. So that they end up dying on the slopes of this mountain called
Kolat Siak.
yeah, that's right. And that translates to Dead Mountain.
Yeah, it does in the Mansi language.
Oh, wow. So that's ominous.
A little foreboding, isn't it?
Yeah. So what do you think happened?
Well, right away you think, avalanche
Yeah.
or a blizzard or maybe a bear attack.
You're right, or some kind of animal attack.
All right, something like that.
But when they found the scene, it was much more chaotic.
Yeah, it really wasn't that straightforward.
Yeah.
They found the tent
Mm.
ripped open from the inside.
From the inside.
Yeah, and then bodies scattered all over the mountainside.
Wow.
Some of them were even barefoot.
Barefoot in the snow.
Yeah, in freezing temperatures.
These are experienced hikers.
Yeah, you'd think they would know better.
What would possess them to leave the tent and go out into the night like that?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It gets even more strange when you start to look at the injuries.
Okay.
Some of them, had hypothermia, which you'd expect,
Sure.
given the conditions. But others had, like, crushed ribs
Oh.
and fractured skulls and internal bleeding.
That doesn't sound like just the elements.
No, it doesn't sound like they just, got lost and died of exposure.
Right. So this is where it really starts to get interesting.
Yeah, that's where the theories start to come in.
All right. So what are some of
Yeah.
the theories?
Well, there's a whole range from the plausible to the really outlandish.
Okay.
We've got avalanches, we've got infrasound.
Infrasound.
Yeah, and then military testing even.
Okay.
And paradoxical undressing is another one.
Paradoxical undressing. What's that?
So paradoxical undressing is this weird thing that happens sometimes
Oh, okay.
with hypothermia, where a person starts to feel really hot,
Oh.
even though they're freezing.
And they start taking their clothes off.
Yeah, and that could explain why some of them were found,
Underdressed.
in such a state of undress.
Okay, that's fascinating. But before we get into the theories,
Sure.
maybe we should talk about the hikers themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are real people
Yeah.
with lives and dreams and, families.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that,
So who were they?
well, most of them were students and recent graduates
Okay.
from the Ural Polytechnic Institute.
Right.
And they were led by this guy named Igor Dyatlov.
Okay.
He was a 23-year-old radio engineering student. And he was really experienced and well-respected.
So we have a pretty tech-savvy leader there.
Yeah, seems like it.
What about the rest of the group?
Well, there was Zenaida Kolmogorova
Mhm.
and Ludmila Dubinina.
Okay.
They were the 2 women on the trip.
I-
And then there was Alexander Kolovatov, Rustam Slobodin, Yuri Krivonychenko.
Wow, these are some names.
Yeah, we've got Yuri Doroshenko and Nikolai Thibault Brugnol.
Wow.
And each of them brought their own unique skills and personality to the group.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about Yuri Yudin,
Right.
the one that had to turn back because of his back injury.
A lucky guy.
Yeah, dodged a bullet there.
Can you imagine, though,
Yeah.
being the sole survivor?
Oh, the what ifs.
Yeah, that must have been awful for him.
Yeah. So let's talk about their journey. Where did they start?
Okay, so they started off in Iadol,
Okay.
and then they took a truck to Vizai,
Uh-huh.
which was the last inhabited settlement before
Yeah.
the wilderness.
Yeah.
And from there, they set off on January 27th towards Mount Otorten.
And this was a challenging route, but it was within their capabilities.
Yeah.
And their diaries and photos show them having a good time.
Yeah, they were in good spirits.
Yeah, enjoying the trek.
Yeah.
So things were going smoothly
Seemingly so.
until they weren't.
Until that night on Dead Mountain.
Yeah. So before we get into like all the details of like what they found,
Right.
we should remember that these weren't just like random adventurers,
No, they had a plan.
right?
They had a route. They were prepared.
This wasn't just some reckless spur of the moment trip.
Right.
That's what makes it even more strange.
Exactly. So what could have gone so wrong
Yeah.
to make them abandon their tent?
And run out into the night and
Yeah.
end up with these injuries and, ultimately die.
That's what we're going to try to figure out.
Yeah. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what those search parties found.
Yeah, it's Pretty chilling stuff.
Oh, I bet.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine you're part of this search party weeks after the hikers were last heard from,
Mm-hmm.
and you finally reach their last known campsite
Okay.
on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl.
I'm there.
What's the first thing you notice?
Probably the cold
Yeah, definitely.
and the snow.
Yeah.
It's probably really quiet.
It's that eerie silence.
Yeah.
That would be really unsettling.
Yeah.
And then you spot the tent,
Okay.
partially collapsed, covered in snow.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing.
What?
It's slashed open from the inside.
From the inside. Why would they do that?
Right. It's like they were trying to get out in a hurry.
Yeah, like something spooked them.
Yeah, definitely not a leisurely pack-up.
So they just left all their stuff.
Well, as you search the area,
Okay.
you start to find their belongings scattered around. Some of it's buried in the snow.
What kind of stuff?
Flashlights, food supplies, clothing.
That's weird.
Yeah, things no experienced hiker would leave behind.
Right. Unless something was really wrong.
Exactly.
So where were the bodies?
Well, some of them were found close to the tent.
Okay.
Almost like they were trying to get back.
Uh-huh.
But others were discovered further down the slope,
Oh,
deeper into the woods in a ravine.
so they weren't all together.
No, it was a really chaotic scene.
Yeah.
It seems like they were desperately trying to survive.
Yeah.
Maybe they got separated trying to find shelter or help.
Right. In the blizzard, in the freezing cold.
Yeah, imagine the fear and disorientation.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
It definitely wasn't a peaceful passing.
So we've got this damaged tent, scattered belongings, bodies in different locations.
Uh-huh.
But the injuries are what really get me.
Yeah, the injuries are really strange.
They don't really fit with just being out in the elements.
No, they don't.
Some had hypothermia, but...
Some had injuries you wouldn't expect from just exposure.
Like what?
Crushed ribs, fractured skull. One was even missing her tongue.
Her tongue? And that's horrifying. What could even cause that?
Right, it's one of the most baffling details of the whole case.
Yeah.
Some people think maybe it was animal scavenging
Oh.
or decomposition in the harsh conditions.
But we don't know for sure.
No, it's still a mystery.
And then there's the radiation.
Right, some of their clothing had traces of radiation on it.
What was up with that?
Nobody knows for sure.
That's so strange.
Yeah, it's fueled a lot of theories.
About like military testing and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, but there's no real proof of that.
So let's talk about some of the theories.
Okay.
What about an avalanche?
It seems like the most obvious explanation, right?
Yeah, avalanche. They're on a mountain, snowstorm hits,
Makes sense.
explains the damaged tent, the pan.
And maybe even some of the injuries.
Right, but...
But the terrain where they found the tent,
Yeah.
it's not really prone to avalanches.
Hmm.
The slope's not steep enough.
Okay.
And there wasn't any avalanche debris.
So no big pile of snow.
No broken trees, nothing like that.
So even the obvious explanation doesn't really work.
Not completely.
What about those injuries? Could an avalanche cause that?
It's unlikely an avalanche would cause those specific injuries.
Okay, so what else could it be? What about this infrasound thing?
Ah, yes, infrasound.
I've heard about that.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
Basically, certain wind conditions
Okay.
interacting with the mountain
Uh-huh.
can create infrasound.
And what is infrasound?
It's sound waves that are below the range of human hearing.
So we can't even hear it.
Nope.
But it can still affect us.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Ah.
Well, research shows that even though we can't hear it,
Mm-hmm.
it can cause all sorts of weird effects,
Okay.
like anxiety, panic, even physical discomfort.
Oh, wow. So maybe that's what made them freak out.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Imagine feeling this overwhelming sense of dread.
Yeah.
Your heart's racing. You want to get out of there.
But you don't know why.
Right. You don't know what's happening,
Yeah, that could definitely make you act irrationally.
even if you're an experienced hiker.
But could it cause those injuries?
That's where the theory gets a little shaky. It's not really clear how infrasound could cause,
Like broken bones and stuff.
right, crushed ribs, internal bleeding, those kinds of things.
Okay, so we've ruled out avalanches and infrasound.
So far.
What about the military?
Yes, the military theory.
What if they were doing some secret testing?
Some people think maybe the hikers stumbled upon a secret testing zone
Okay.
or got caught in some kind of fallout.
Right, because of the radiation.
Exactly.
But this was during the Cold War.
Right, a lot of secrecy back then.
So maybe there are some records we don't know about.
It's possible, but there's no real evidence to support that theory.
Okay.
No records of any tests or anything like that.
And even if there was some secret stuff going on,
Right.
how would that explain the injuries?
That's the other thing. It doesn't really add up,
So we're back to square one.
pretty much.
What about paradoxical undressing?
Well, that could explain why some of them were underdressed,
Right.
but it doesn't explain the other injuries.
Okay, so we're still missing a piece of the puzzle.
It seems like it...
So what about the really crazy theories?
What do you mean?
You know, like the Yeti, aliens, government, cover-ups.
Those are fun to think about,
Yeah.
but there's no real evidence.
Right.
We have to stick to what we can actually analyze.
Okay, so after all this time, we still don't know what happened.
It's a mystery.
It really is.
But that's what makes it so fascinating.
I guess so.
It's a puzzle we're still trying to solve.
Well, let's talk about some of the newer information.
Okay.
I heard there was a recent investigation in Russia.
Yeah, in 2020.
What did they find?
They concluded that an avalanche was the most likely cause.
Really?
But not a regular avalanche.
What do you mean?
A slab avalanche.
I've never heard that.
It's a specific type of avalanche.
Okay.
And they think the way the hikers set up their camp,
Uh-huh.
combined with the snow and the wind,
Yeah.
could have triggered it.
So maybe it was the simple answer after all.
Maybe. But not everyone agrees with that conclusion.
Oh.
Yeah, some people still think the avalanche theory doesn't explain everything.
Like what?
The severity of the injuries, the radiation, the missing tongue.
Right, all that weird stuff.
Exactly.
So the debate continues.
It does.
But I guess that's part of what makes this case so interesting.
Yeah, the fact that we're still talking about it after all these years,
Yeah, trying to figure it out.
it's a reminder that there are still mysteries out there.
Yeah.
Things we may never fully understand.
And maybe one day we'll find a new clue.
Who knows?
Or someone will put all the pieces together
It could happen.
and finally solve the mystery.
That would be amazing.
So it's like, we have this puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And we've got some of the pieces in place.
Uh-huh.
But there's still like these gaps.
Definitely.
And weird pieces that don't seem to fit.
That's what makes it so interesting, though, right?
Yeah, it's like we don't get these easy answers.
Exactly.
It makes you think about like the things we don't know.
Yeah, the unknown.
Yeah, and it makes me think twice about going into the wilderness.
Right. You got to be prepared.
Yeah, but this whole thing has really gotten to me.
I know what you mean.
It's like I need to know what happened.
Well, the good news is
Or
there's tons of information out there about this.
really?
Oh, yeah. Declassified files,
Mm.
photos, diaries,
Oh, wow.
forensic reports, all kinds of stuff.
So I could just go down this rabbit hole
Oh, yeah.
for hours and hours
You could spend days on this.
trying to figure it out myself.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And even if we don't ever really know for sure,
Right.
just thinking about it,
Yeah.
considering the different possibilities,
That's got to be good for you, right?
it is. It makes you think critically.
Yeah.
Question what you think you know.
Right. Be open to new ideas.
Exactly.
That's pretty important these days.
It is with all the information overload.
Yeah. It's hard to know what to believe.
Got to be careful.
So for our listeners
Hmm.
who are now probably obsessed with this,
I hope so.
what's like the one thing
Yeah.
they should keep in mind?
Be skeptical.
Okay.
There's a lot of misinformation out there,
Right.
especially online.
Yeah.
So stick to credible sources
Yeah, okay.
and don't believe everything you read.
Right. Just because two things happened around the same time doesn't
Yeah.
mean they're related.
Exactly. Correlation doesn't equal causation.
That's a good one.
It's important to remember that.
So maybe one of our listeners
Yeah.
will find the missing piece.
It's possible.
The thing that explains it all.
That would be incredible.
What?
The Dyatlov Pass incident is a reminder
Of what?
that there are still mysteries in the world,
Yeah.
things we may never understand.
And sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.
Way stranger.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions.
That's what it's all about.
And maybe one day we'll finally know what happened on Dead Mountain.
Maybe.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep searching for the truth.